YouTube, check my tube audio, check my tube. Peace, 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 peace. What's up? It's your man LR, or Rakim. I don't know. Just dropping a quick jewel or something I had on my mind. I was watching this video that was talking about Mansa Musa and all that. And those who don't know, Mansa Musa was the world's richest man, a black man that was the ruler of the kingdom of Mali. And one of the reasons that we know that he was one of the richest men is because he went on a pilgrimage from Mali to Mecca. He was Muslim. And in his pilgrimage, he was, had this big retinue. If you don't know retinue, that's like all your handlers, your people, had this big ass parade of motherfuckers from Mali all the way to Mecca. And the whole way, he was just going through different places, different towns, and just giving out gold. And it's rumored, I won't even say rumored, it's said that he gave out so much gold that he completely destroyed the economy of Egypt and created inflation. Now here's the problem. This is the part that a lot of people don't know and they don't tell you. He spent so much money that on his return trip from Mecca back home, he had to borrow money because he had spent all his money because he had to pay for food and all of that, and places to rest for him and his retainers, his retinue. So that wasn't the smartest thing in the world, and it's something that our community is quite good at, tricking off our money and then being like, oh shit, what the fuck I'm gonna do now? I done spent all my money. But I even got the worst part about it. What he didn't realize is he basically set in motion the transatlantic slave trade. The reason being, and I'll put the book up that I got this information from, but I don't know why I hadn't heard it before, but that money that he put all through the area, changing all those economies, the Europeans were just starting to get into the age of discovery and navigation when they started sailing everywhere and colonizing everything under the sun, thinking the world was theirs. They were seeing all this wealth coming from the different Moors and things like that that were above the sub-Saharan area of Africa, because that's who they traded with often across the Mediterranean and the Hejaz and places like that. That they was like, wait a minute, so it's money down there? I mean, like money. So that spurred them, first led by the Portuguese of all people. And if you know, Portugal is a small ass country. But Portugal started sailing around the, I think that's called the Horn of Africa, where you're going around like West Africa and getting into the interior of sub-Saharan Africa. And they started trading with the Africans and things like that. And it was like, okay, well, it ain't as much gold here, but they got other things we can use, which is how they got into doing sugar, because sugar was the crack trade at the time back then. I mean, it's the crack trade now. It works on the same centers of your brain as cocaine and everything else, but it was a new thing to them, and it was like, oh shit, we could use sugar for all these different things. And so they established all these plantations and things like that. And what do you need for plantations? Slave labor. So a lot of these warring tribes, because when we went to war with each other, we would capture them and then we'd make them slaves, not in the sense of chattel slavery, but they could work within our society. It might be subservient to a point, but in a lot of stories that I've read over the years of various cultures and this happening, you've had people go from being slaves to being rulers of kingdoms. So there was some upward mobility within being a slave, as crazy as it sounds. So these Africans, if you've seen The Woman King, that showed there right there how they would capture people and sell them to the Europeans or whatever. And you saw the Portuguese were involved in that because a lot of that area was one of the places that they frequently traded with the Portuguese and then the other European powers that came along, because they saw Portugal was getting this money. It's like, these little motherfuckers getting all this money and all this shit. Because between that and the fact that they were sending navigators everywhere, because they had people going to India, and they eventually sailed completely around the Cape, of Africa to get to India, because they kept trying to find a way to get to India faster, because they knew India had textiles, and that's where they got sugar from, by the way, and other goods and stuff that Europeans wanted in demand, make money in the trade. Which is how Christopher Columbus, dumbass, oopsed and thought he was in India when he actually went over to America. Now the problem with that is that Mansa Musa's successor, Abu Bakr II, had already made travels, sent voyages, and sent people to the New World, South America, and places like that, because South America and Africa really aren't that far apart. And if you know the story of Christopher Columbus, he had an African navigator who was from that area, who knew how the trade winds worked and how you could sail for Africa. But anyway, just wanted to drop a few jewels on that. Let me know what you think, because this is not information that's disseminated out that often. People, things you should know. Because, if you've ever heard the saying, if you don't know history, you'll be doomed to repeat. But anyway, two things.